Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today's topic is real estate due diligence, avoiding costly mistakes.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. Due diligence is an important topic when you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. I have 4 points today I want to cover. If we have time, I'll even answer some questions at the end, but related to due diligence. Because there's some common mistakes real estate investors make that can be avoided by some basic disciplines. The first would be insufficient due diligence. I see this most often when an investor or acquisition agent just takes a seller's word for the condition of a property. I mean, how many of us would take the word of a used car salesman as to the condition of a car? We want to test drive it. We want to take a look at it. We want to look under the hood. We want to see really what's going on. But sometimes we get so busy, we have so many appointments booked that we just take the word of a seller. And the way we work with transactions and offers, it creates additional risk. And in addition to creating additional risk, it also can lead to incorrect offers. And so you end up making the incorrect offer on a property. You get farther down the line and realize, hey, the numbers just don't work, when you could have avoided this all up front by proper due diligence inspections. And this is kind of the cynical part of me in this business, because sellers expect to be taken advantage of. This is why building rapport is so important. When you do, the seller will feel more comfortable with you. They'll start to share things with you. They'll show you things. They'll show you the wheres and the whats and where the issues are. But then you still have to verify them. The seller may go, "Oh no, we don't have haven't had any problems with the roof and anything." And then I'll go, and then all of a sudden I'll be in a conversation. I'll be like, "Yeah, but we had to have somebody come out and repair the spot that was on the ceiling here in this bedroom." And oh yeah, that's right. We did have somebody come up and replace a couple tiles. But you've got to go verify that information. Now, obviously, if you're the acquisition agent or whatever, you may not be the guy climbing on the roof, but you need to have it verified. You need to verify what's been told. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's very easy to not do the proper diligence and buy the wrong property in the wrong place. This is another one that gets me from time to time. And this is the kind of conversation that leads to, "Hey, coach, I got this great deal on this great house." And then they tell me all about it. "The seller had it on the market for 6 months. It didn't sell. And we've been negotiating really hard on this thing, but they finally accepted my offer, and we got this property under contract." And then you come to find out it backs up to, you name it. Backs up to a dump, it backs up to a mall, it backs up to a freeway, it backs up to a jail. The list just goes on and on. But part of our due diligence needs to be determining how much other properties sold for that are just like the one that we are trying to acquire. What did other homes that backed up to a dump, a mall, and freeways, what did they actually sell for? Because just 2 rows of houses away, those houses may have sold for more. For instance, a house, 2 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows of houses away may have sold for $200 a square foot, but people are having a hard time selling a house that backs up to something like a mall or a halfway house or a jail for $175 a square foot. And that's a big difference in value of a piece of property. And you need to know those things. One of the big ones that we find also are power lines. You go out to HUD's website and they say that there's no adverse effect to high tension power lines, in your area. But there's a lot of people who won't buy homes in that area. Buyer pool is smaller, means there's less demand for your house, and they typically sell for less money in a normal market. So you really need to do your diligence. You need to see what's in the area, what would adversely affect, what would make this property not sell for as much as one maybe a block away. The other thing that I see is people skipping their due diligence periods altogether. This is where you have the right and the time to do an inspection, to do the research. But for whatever reason, you skip it. You get too busy, you don't assign the task, you forget to call the home inspector, you forget to call your contractor. And I've heard, from people, oh, it'll be fine. The house looked good a few weeks ago when we got the paperwork signed. Hey, boss, this house is a gem. I'm sure there's not going to be any issues with it. And then you close on the property and you find out it had cracks in the pool, had electrical issues, had HVAC issues, rodent infestation. And now all of a sudden you're thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in fixing a problem that could have been avoided had proper due diligence been applied. If you have the ability, use it. If something significant then is discovered, you ask for a condition credit from the seller to cover the issues. You renegotiate that. I have found most sellers to be reasonable, because here's what I also find is most sellers knew that the problem existed. They just didn't tell you. They were hoping that you didn't see it. They were hoping you didn't find it. But now that you found it, they come to the reality of, hey, yeah, I need to sell this house, and yeah, I'm going to have to deal with this, and you can negotiate. The other big issue that we find is people waiving their due diligence period. This is something that I avoid, that something I just don't do. I may shorten a due diligence period, but I'm not a fan of waiving inspections. What's the seller trying to hide? If the seller, wants to get a fair price for his house, don't hide anything. Let me look at the house. Let me make a fair offer on the house. But I generally don't waive inspections. On the retail side, I know some buyers are like, well, this house just looks nice and we're willing to deal with everything after it. But as an inspector, we're not generally buying houses that are 2-3 years old. A lot of times we're buying houses that are 20 years old, that have been hoarder homes and deferred maintenance. And so you really need to not waive your inspections. Now, I have shortened inspection periods to give me advantages over a competing offer. Because most of the people that I have doing acquisitions for me have contracting experience. They have some kind of real estate experience. And certainly if I'm going out on a property, I've got those, and we can take an initial quick look at it. I can get my contractors or inspectors over there pretty quick, because we do enough business with them that they will give us a priority, which is why it's important to build those relationships. But waiving inspection, it's an opposition of my low risk method of real estate investing. And that's really what we try to do. Low risk real estate investing. And so we try to keep the inspection periods in place and keep those in play. All of these due diligent mistakes can be really costly, and they can be detrimental, but they're avoidable. So we certainly want to avoid risk when we can, enhance our peace of mind, and increase our profit. And that's really what we're in this business for. We're in here to make profit, and there's no sense in laying awake at night worrying about what kind of mistake you made because you skipped or waived an opportunity to find a major issue. And you have one foundation issue that costs you $30,000 or $40,000. It'll give you a pretty good wake-up call. So let's avoid that. You can save yourself a lot of grief also by considering some things before making an investment play. And that is being very good at your market analysis, knowing the numbers, knowing your exit strategies. I've worked with investors over the years that sometimes, when things are rolling and things are really good, they do things that they may not otherwise do. Go to the foreclosure sale down at the county courthouse, or buy a house just on somebody's say-so. But you got to know your numbers and your exit strategies. What happens if, you buy some of the county courthouse, at least in our area, it's $10,000 in the courthouse steps when you purchase the property, and 24 hours to pay the property in full. So, you got to have some exit strategies. Is your exit strategy to walk away from $10,000? So you've got to know some of these things up front. You cannot analyze a property by emotion. And it's a story that I tell often about one of my investors, and he invested in a lot of homes. He was doing a lot of fix and flips, and he called me on a property that he had bought at the foreclosure auction. And he said, man, I got this great deal on this property. He says, I think it only needs this much work on the thing. And so I got the address from him, and I put it into my system, and he told me what he paid for it. I was like, Bob, you paid retail for that property. But sometimes you get the emotion connected at the auction or whatever. You end up buying something on emotion instead of on market analysis, and that can be costly. Um, so we have to look at all things, including property conditions. Some things are easier to figure out than others. Some things are very noticeable: deterioration, overgrown landscaping, shingles missing from a roof. Those are all things that are pretty easy for you as an investor to identify. I like the homes that nobody else wants. We've developed a tool that we use to negotiate repairs, when buying these properties with zero down. And so I like properties with problems. They can be condition problems. They can be, owner problems. They can be title problems. I always like properties with problems because it gives me the ability to better position myself. I figure out what my exit strategy is going to be. I figure out what the problems are, and then I sit down with the seller and we negotiate what kind of acquisition price we can have on this thing. Remember, we get paid as investors for solving problems. That's why people are paying us. Most houses out there are going to sell retail. They're going to sell on the MLS. They're going to sell for a retail price. They're going to sell to a retail buyer. We're in the market of buying the other homes, the homes that aren't going to sell for retail. And so we make our money solving people's problems. And so, with that said, you also have to have, your financing options in place. Knowing where your sources of fundings are come, so when you do negotiate a deal, you know which direction you're going. What funding will you use going into the deal? Don't wait to find out after your due diligence period has ended. Because you may find out that your investors aren't as excited about the project as you are. I always have options. We can buy a property for cash. We can use hard money. We can use private funding or conforming. Each has benefits and drawbacks. I try to determine at the time that I make the offer what financing best suits the goal on the deal. And I get the source involved early in the project. That way there's no funding issues as we get closer to closing. I won't tell you that it's never happened where I've had an investor call you weeks into the deal and say, hey, something came up, we're pulling our money out, and we've had to find other investors to come in. But, that's just part of this business. But you want to have those funding places built in. You want to do your diligence up front for it so that you're not dealing with problems as you're getting close to closing. Also, the other thing you need to take a look at when you're talking about due diligence and protecting this area is your exit strategies. You should always have an exit strategy. If you only invest in one area, let's just say you're a wholesaler, or maybe you're a short-term rental person, or whatever it is that you do, your exit strategy may be easier to define because you only have one play with your deal. Either we sell this off to a fix and flip through our wholesale, or we cancel the contract. But you need to always build in some kind of cancellation strategy if a deal goes sideways. And so for us, who we operate in several different niches out there in investing, we're always looking on how do we get out of this thing if our main objective doesn't work. Are there other plays for us that we can turn this thing into, and still benefit from the transaction? Our due diligence should be about controlling risks. This is the third thing that I look at. It's got to be about controlling risk. A savvy real estate investor controls risks to enhance profits. And that's why, contingency planning is pretty important. I remember in the early years of investing, we spent much more time laying out potential risk with every project. And I'm not saying that we don't spend time planning out our contingencies, because we certainly do. But now it's more a step in the process of our acquisition. It's part of our methodology. We plan out our risks up front. We've done enough of various types of deals. And if we get some kind of screwball thing that comes in that we haven't seen before, then we sit down and talk about it. Well, what do we want to do with this? Well, what happens if this happens? And can we turn this into this? Can we get out of it by wholesale? Whatever we need to do, we always come up with our contingency plans up front, it creates a lot less stress for us down the road. You know, one of the other things that we plan for, you know, kind of up front is the buffering of unexpected expenses. You know, many first-time investors or those still getting traction forget about the unexpected. You know, my wife likes to watch the home fix and flip it TV shows, you know, where they're doing these remodels for people who just bought this house, or these people have this house, they're coming in and they're making it, you know, wow. And but it seems like every episode, the producers who are writing the scripts for these shows, they build in some unexpected expense, you know, termite damage, sewer line broken, incorrect engineering on beams. You know, I get it. It builds suspense for the consumer, you know, watching it at home on the TV. But as an investor, you need to develop a strategy to buffer against the unexpected, because unexpected is not good in our industry. We don't like unexpected. And so we try to reduce risk by controlling and getting the information that we need up front. Does that mean we catch it all? No. We've had times where, you know, we thought one thing, and by looking at it, our inspectors looked at it, and then, you know, we go in and wreck the place out, and we find out that there was things that were hidden behind walls, that were hidden under insulation that you couldn't get to, couldn't see, and you just have to deal with them. But we buffer in some contingency money because we know on every project there's going to be something. And the nice thing is, if you over buff it for these contingencies when you get into the project, that money is still yours. It's still in your account. You just didn't expect it. Another way to protect against risk is insurance. It can be a means of protection. You know, if you're using your own cash, there's no one to force you to insure a project for fire, theft, injury. You know, all of that risk can be insured against. But if you're leveraging your project, the investors are most likely going to demand insurance to protect them, which just makes sense. So you need a good investor-friendly insurance agent that carries insurance lines for vacant and investment properties. And you want to make sure of that, because if you find a good investor who does these type of properties all the time, they may have good lines that get you even better insurance rates than you can from maybe a mainline carrier. Another thing that I think it's important to talk about is legal protections. You know, no one likes to spend money on legal fees. You know, not even my attorney, and he jokes all the time about it, but he doesn't even like to spend money on things like legal fees. You know, in some states, you're required to have an attorney as part of your closing. So you need to find a good investor-friendly attorney that you can develop a good working relationship with. I mean, it's very important. I mean, I've got several attorneys that I work with, and I'm in a non-attorney closing state, but I still have relationships with a commercial real estate attorney, residential real estate attorneys, HOA attorneys. Develop good relationships with these, because you never know when you're going to need them. There's instances when we all need to seek some advice up front to avoid a trial in the future. That is very, very expensive. One of my favorite quotes comes from the movie Magnum Force, where Clint Eastwood, he's playing a character, Harry Callahan. He says, "A man's got to know his limitations. Know your limitations, and it'll help you to protect your risk." Number 4, last thing I want to talk about kind of in this area of due diligence is, you know, well, let me just put it this way. Here's some more tips, you know, just kind of to remember to be successful in real estate investing. And I would say the first thing is get help. And this is really a tip that was reinforced by Robert Kiyosaki in my life, you know, many years ago. You know, he mentioned in one of his books how he has always had coaches. And I've had coaches for the last 35, 40 years, but I never really realized the importance and value that they were playing in the steps that I was taking. You know, there's an old quote that says, "A man who is his own lawyer has a fool for a client." You know, this is attributed to many people. They find it in writings all the way back to 1682. But the fact is you're not an attorney unless you are. You know, if you're a real estate attorney, then you've got steps ahead of me in that area. But generally, even real estate attorneys are smart enough to know if they've got a big transaction that's beyond their means, they go to their colleagues who have more experience in that area. So I would say make sure that you have a relationship with an attorney, someone who can read documents if you get some complicated documents, somebody who can help you put together documents if you come up with a creative idea that you don't have any paperwork for and you need something. You want it to be legal. You want it to stand the test of the courts. So when we're dealing with stuff, we always want to make sure that we're avoiding, these risks. The other one is make sure that you have a good, somebody good who can do the inspection on your homes. So, our acquisition agents would be taught what to look for, what not to look for, to make notes, a list of what sellers tell you, look for conflicts in their conversations. But we don't always buy properties in the local market. If you're buying properties in a remote market, you have to have people who can do the inspecting for you, home inspectors, contractors that can do the initial inspection. You may even have real estate agents who can go out and take a look at the property, send you some pictures of things that were missing from, the listing or whatever. But you do need to have people who can help in those areas. The other thing is get a coach or a mentor. It's important to have somebody that you can bounce opportunities and maybe, ways of doing things. So maybe you're a wholesaler and a deal comes down the line and you're trying to put together a small syndicate so that you can leverage an apartment complex, maybe 100 units. And if you have a mentor or coach, you can help put those things together for you because they probably have a network that you're just developing. Or if you have a network, they may have people that are outside your network that they can bring in to help you put these together. And then obviously we need to stay informed about the state of our real estate markets. You got to listen to different points of view. So for instance, if you go out and you go, okay, hey, there's this many homes that sold and generally only half that many homes sold, real estate market's good, right? But I always listen to multiple opinions about where a market's going, market trends. No one opinion is right. I have good friends who are very astute with making market predictions, and sometimes they're on completely opposite sides. I want to do the analysis, I want to get the information, and I want to listen to the different market trends so that I can make my own decisions. I can almost guarantee that you'll find opposing opinions if you look hard enough. And then always try to maintain financial discipline, continue to educate yourself, continue improving, invest in your practices, and it'll help you, with your experience along the way, and develop a prosperous investing career. Now, I do have a few questions with me this morning, and we're running kind of late on time. So let me grab at least one or two of them and see if we can't get them answered on the air. Here's the first one: what documents and information should a beginner request from sellers or a listing agent during the due diligence period? That's a pretty good question from somebody just getting started out. If you're purchasing off the MLS, you should use an independent agent to represent you as the buyer. The only time this would change is if you're licensed as an agent, you have the tools available to ensure that the listing agent is fulfilling their fiduciary duties in the transaction. But when it comes to documents, each state has different documents, but most states, most realtor associations have seller disclosure documents, and make sure you get a copy of the seller disclosure forms and read them thoroughly. And also, if the seller doesn't provide you an insurance history report, you can request it. If you don't get it, you can order a clue report generally online and get a copy of known insurance claims. And so I think we have time for one more this morning. What are some warning signs that indicate a property may not be a good investment despite its initial appearances? The biggest one I find is a seller not being cooperative, not allowing you to perform inspections. They always have an excuse for why you can't get in the house. They always have a reason why you can't do something. Clouds on title that a seller is unwilling to address or doesn't have the authority to address can be issues. Reoccurring insurance claims that may not be deal killing, but may require price adjustments to cover your risk. For instance, if a property has had a a roof issue 3 times, and the insurance has to pay on that same roof issue 3 times, there may be a problem with the roof, and you may actually end up having to replace trusses or doing some of those kind of things. And so it's worth looking into. One of the big ones we find is with sewer backups. There's a problem in the sewer lines, and you'll see multiple claims for floods related to sewer backups. Well, those can all be fixed. It's just you have to adjust the price of your offers to mitigate those risks. This has been Scott Whitwam with the Mindsets and Method for Wealth Building through Real Estate.